you are in startup land. As usual, back here. I like to start the week off with this because it gets us all in the mood. I'm just talking about growth. I and we at Expert Dojo may have invested in over 300 companies over the years, but I have never moved my sights away from how do we grow really fast. And so last week, the week before last, I was a little bit focused on how we go deep into emotional empathy. And I talked about user empathy, and I talked about how, folks like Apple and larger brands are losing their user empathy, but also how we can use that as like a hugely massive advantage as an early stage startup to be able to steal their customers off them. Now, you may think to yourself, it's impossible to take large customers off Apple. Well, you're competing against the Apples of the world. As an early stage startup at pre-seed and seed, you are saying that you are going to beat all of the Apples of the world and be able to provide a better product than they provide. If you want to do that, you need to be prepared to do what needs to be done. And I outlined an area within user empathy whereby it was a personal experience with me about Apple losing their place and where I see to be a really easy place. And at that time, we talked about how it was as simple as just something as small as the iCloud, and how Apple had done just a terrible job there, and how that loses from the other areas of brand, user experience, user interface, and emotional empathy. And when you have large brands that are starting to lose their ability to care about customers, then you got a really big problem. Anyway, that was 2 weeks ago, so we're not going to worry about that. Last week, I also touched on crowdfunding and how you can use the crowd and the community as an army on your back. And we have one of our companies, Protolicious, that are doing an amazing job, and they're going to build out like a huge WeFunder campaign. We've got other companies like Rad who've done it as well. We have done it ourselves. I think it's a highly, highly, highly effective place. But that's actually not what I want to talk about this week. First of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about how you build your advisors and the people around you to have a great company that other people see is a corporation that just happens to be disguised as a startup, as opposed to a startup desperately trying to be seen as anything else. And I'll explain what I mean by that in a couple of moments. Then I'm going to bring on one of our incredibly fast-growing companies. I give you a huge prediction with this company. I think they'll grow at least a 5x this year. I think the following year, they could grow at 5x again. I think you could be looking at not one of the fastest growing companies in Latin America. I think you could be looking at one of the fastest growing companies in the world. Okay. No pressure, David, but this is going to be a good conversation. But I want to step back. And actually, the stepping back that I'm going to do, I'm going to use a great example in the same way that I used a terrible example 2 weeks ago of Apple as like the destroyers of everything. And I'm going to follow that on with a TEDx talk that I'm going to do, which is all going to be about the imminent death of Apple. I welcome it. Today, we're going to talk about how you can actually how you can build your influence by building advisors in your team. And I'm going to give you a great example, which is going to tie into the company that are coming on in a couple of moments, inBestGo. Okay, so taking a breath, getting ready, here it comes. Brex are one of my favorite growth stories. And they're one of my favorite growth stories, not because they had a good product, because their product at the beginning, mediocre would be me being unbelievably generous. They had a copy and paste of Bill.com, which is a expense software, and nothing else. They were a neobank. How many neobanks were there 5-6 years ago? There were like 1 million neobanks. But that's not what they did amazingly well. What they did amazingly well was how they got to market. They did two things. Now, everybody here, I'm saying to you, you should be studying what Brex did as a go-to-market. It will be a master class that will be shown in places like Stanford and Harvard and all of the great universities in the world because they did such an incredible thing. So what was that thing they did? Well, number one, they knew that just like a couple of boys from Brazil coming in saying that they were going to start a neobank didn't mean anything at all, even if they had done one pretty well at home. They needed power behind them. How did they get that power? Well, they brought in folks like the PayPal Mafia. They got in two of the PayPal Mafia, and their stories about how they brought those people in are legendary. They literally pretended to be looking for a job to get them in at the start. And then when they got those folks in, that was then moved from being a startup into being a very legitimate organization that raised money faster than any other organization that I've seen raising money prior to that point. It was incredible. I think they raised about $200 million within the first 2 years. It's just phenomenal. But it was all because of the people in the team and the incredible vision that they had built for what they were actually creating. It was an amazing thing. So I'm saying to all of you, you all got to do this. Reach really high for your advisors. You don't need to pay them a ton of money. I spoke to a chap the other day. And again, when I come to these podcasts, I don't pre-decide 6 months before what I'm going to talk about. I look at what has most impacted me in the previous week. And then I say to myself, that's what we're going to do today because it's most relevant for you listening. And so I spoke to an Indian entrepreneur who wanted to build out a curriculum of education in the US. Very, very difficult to build. But he brought in one of the biggest tennis stars in the world. What happened? He raised $60 million. Brex brought in all of the PayPal people, or a bunch of them, and a bunch of other people who are just as good. What did they do? They raised like hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars in a tiny period of time. Their valuation jumped from $3 million or $2 million where YC came in to 2 years later, they were already at 1,000x, right? Advisors and who you are surrounded by is important when raising money. Do not fail yourself. Don't think you can just do it with customers alone. You need those great people. And look, I'm going to bring David into the chat right now because I want us to be able to talk a little bit about this. But folks you have around you are not there just for advice. They're there also to ensure that you can build something really great with investors who will trust those people more than they do you. Hey, David.
Hi, Brian. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good, thanks. I'm going to hope there's a little bit of a lag in the video, so I'm going to hope that that's going to be okay. But look, we're going to talk about growth. We're going to talk about inBestGo. We're going to talk about what you guys have done before. And I also want to talk about building advisors in the team now that that thing is like so top of mind, at least for me, at least. But first of all, how are you? And just share a little bit with everybody about inBestGo and what makes you guys so powerful.
Perfect. Thanks. I'm so happy here to be joining this call. Well, my name is David. I'm the CEO and co-founder of inBestGo. We are a company based in Guatemala. We have been in the crypto world since a couple of years ago. We built this huge company to bring financial freedom for all the Latin American users, right? For people in Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, it's very difficult to have access to this technology, to have other investment tools. So we developed this platform so users can go into people that are on bank, have these tools, have different opportunities to investment, the best way to send remittances around Latin America, for people that are living in the US, that are working in 2-3 different jobs and want to send money to the families in other countries. It's very difficult. Most of the companies charge a lot of fees to them. So we allow this technology with blockchain, so they can send traditional remittances and also crypto remittances to these
So
countries.
can I just, if you don't mind, just to interrupt for one moment. So just to explain it so people understand it, because I want to go into the features afterwards, but like the problem that's being solved is it's very hard to transfer money across borders, especially if a lot of those folks are unbanked. Like it's just a huge problem. So that's the problem that inBestGo are solving. The other area is that people are restricted to only be able to transfer money within the currencies that they're coming from and that they're going to. And that's another huge problem because that does not represent the full extent of areas that people are able to transfer money into. So inBestGo have solved that problem. They've really facilitated a very simple and easy and cheap way for people to be able to transfer money either from money to money or currency to currency, or from currencies straight through to any number of cryptocurrencies. So if, for example, you love the idea of actually, for example, let me give you a super example. Not necessarily, but I'm sure in Latin America, Argentina would be a great example. Like there were times in the past where if you had transferred money directly into local currency in Argentina, your money would have gone woo, all the way down. Even if you could have found a remittance partner that would have done it for cheap, or they would have done it for less than the crazy cost that they have right now, it still would have gone right down because you were forced to do it in the local currency. But imagine if you had hundreds of cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, that you could also hold the money into as well. Oh my God, your money would have not only been transferred at a fraction of the price, would have not only been transferred at a fraction of the amount of time, but also would have arrived over there and probably would be worth 1,000 times more today than it would have been worth at that time. Like they're really the main problems that you're solving, right? That onboarding and offboarding and the simplicity of being able to transfer money without bank accounts.
Yeah, that's correct. And also, Brian, by the way, they can also keep the money in a crypto card. So they can use a crypto card from Mastercard. So they can keep the money in any crypto they want. They don't if they don't want pesos from Argentina, for example, or pesos from Mexico, they can keep USDT, for example, and they can spend in everywhere in every part of the world with the crypto card, and they receive cashback. Is the first crypto card that is giving one of the 350 cryptos that we have as a cashback. So it's another investment tool for them. So every time they spend in a coffee, in gasoline, in energy bills, they are receiving cashback as an investment, for example.
Yeah, and that solves one of the biggest problems in crypto, which is that normally people are like, well, I have like Shiba coin, but I can't spend it. Well, you can, because you just need the technology in place to onboard and offboard that currency in a very simple way that is seamless. The shop or the coffee shop or the restaurant, they don't even know. It just goes straight in and out, but it means that you can maintain whatever currencies you like the most. And so this speaks to a growing world. And look, I always say, and by the way, the greatest thing about inBestGo is that we get to invest in inBestGo. So it's one of our amazing portfolio companies. We're going to talk about the growth in a moment. I am predicting this is going to be one of the fastest growing companies in the Americas. I think we're going to see levels of growth that is going to blow people's minds. But before we go into like specific growth tactics and how you actually get bigger at this, I just want to go back to like what it takes to grow an amazing product. Like, first of all, you have to have an amazing product. Like if you don't have something that's going to break through, that transforms people in a really huge way, well, why are you wasting your time with this stuff, right? And so I saw inBestGo the very first time, and I was like, inBestGo is going to be the future of crypto. Because everybody wants to be able to play with crypto, have crypto, move crypto, transfer crypto for lots of reasons. Sometimes it's the banking or the not having any banking. Sometimes it's the fact that they're just really smart. Sometimes they like to play and they want to have like multiple currencies they can move in and out all of the time. And sometimes it's for convenience. But for all of those reasons, it's going to be the future. It's how, the younger generation are thinking. And so it's going to happen. So for me, the product was there. The second thing is then making sure that you surround yourself with some of the best people in the industry. And like your organization are doing that right now. I do want to dig into that even deeper on the call today, because I think what you're doing is absolutely phenomenal. The next thing is making sure that like alongside those partners and everything else, that you're building brand and messaging around that. And what's really beautiful is this message of we are facilitating simple transactions across borders, wherever you're coming from, wherever you're going to, in a way that you have control over your money on your terms, is a massively important message that you guys are nailing down really well. And the aggressive outreach that you're putting in place to be able to make sure that that brand of that incredible product, along with those huge activations that you're doing, that's taking you to that next level. And I just want to wrap this all in one piece, because I always look at like 7 factors for a company to be successful. For me, what's really probably the most impressive around this is that the entire organization is run as a great organization. It's not run as a small startup that's been brought through. The budgeting numbers are important, budgeting numbers that are expected to be hit. The P&Ls and the revenue statements are done properly. The company is run as an organization. Like, this is the difference between startups trying to be great companies. Start off as a great company and you do great. So all of that stuff is really cool. Let me see if we have Kishle's asked you to change to a better network. Don't change anything yet. That's okay, cool. Okay, guys, you guys are playing with that. I like it. Okay, good. So I'm going to open it up. By the way, so for outside, anybody who has any questions that they want to put in, and please feel free to throw the questions in there. We're very happy to go through them. We're going to talk about growth. Before we talk about growth, David, maybe, and by the way, if you need to jump for like going networks or anything else, just let me know, and I can chat on. I can talk about this for a little while because I've got loads of content about how Brex built up. But just for yourself, first of all, talk to me a little bit about the history of inBestGo and how you took this from not existing to building out incredibly complicated technology to taking it to where you are today. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about the financial numbers too.
Sure. Well, I think the most important thing is that, for me at least, is to build something, a tool that I want to use, right? That all the products that I'm gonna build is something that I want to use. That's, I think, is something very important. In 2017, in I think most of the countries in Latin America, it was very difficult to invest in crypto. For me, it took me like 3 weeks to open an account, to send the money, to send the wire, to receive the money, and to buy the first Bitcoin for me. So it was very difficult. So in 2018, with Sebastian, who is my co-founder, we said, okay, let's build something in crypto here for Latin America to be secure, to be fast, and to be for everybody, all right? So we begin the development of inBestGo. Something important that we did here is that we built relationships with the banks. The banks that year, it was very difficult for them to think in crypto, right? Because they think that crypto was only scams, to money laundering and that kind of things. So we did a huge relationship with the biggest banks in Central America. So we create this system for compliance for crypto.
By the way, how did you create these relationships with these banks? So, because this is all about creating the infrastructure. And so when you start talking immediately about early stage startup, convincing a large financial institution to work with you, that's an incredibly difficult thing to do. How did you do that?
It was. I had so many meetings with them in a board, explaining crypto, explaining blockchain, explaining everything to them. But it was a lot of meetings with the compliance team from the banks. A couple of banks, they say no to us, right? They say, no, we don't want to be involved in crypto. But other banks, at least the biggest bank in Central America, they say yes. And that was, I think, the first step to give this tool for the Latin American users, right? So everybody that uses inBestGo in Central America, for example, they are using a trustful app, right? A trustful system. We comply with the banks, so banks are happy with us. So we can move the money
Well, that's the important point. Whenever anybody, if you're a startup and you're building relationships, remember at the very beginning, most people you're going to build relationships are bigger than you. There will be something that they're very worried about with you right from the get-go. It might be that you can't afford to pay them. It might be, in the case of this, where it's cryptocurrency within a very traditional bank, it might be that they're worried that there won't be trust, or that there won't be know your customer, or there won't be other things done. You got to hit these things head on. You cannot ignore them and hope that the bank or the other people are silly and they're not going to work it out. You have to make sure you solve the problem they're facing. My guess is that the biggest thing they were worried about in this case was the trust, that you would make sure that you would not cause the bank problems in the future.
That's correct. That's correct. We had so many cases with users, so we comply with them. We say we provide all the information, and they say, "Wow, this is amazing." inBestGo is having so much care with the KYCs and even more controls that even the banks are using right now, right? So it was
Yeah.
it was for us, it was very happy to do that part. Then I remember the team from Mastercard approached us and they say, guys, you are the biggest company in Central America for crypto. We want to do something with you guys. And I say, hey guys, I know I know the product that I want to build with you guys. So we build this crypto card. We create an NFT related with the car. So when you buy the NFT, you receive the car as a reward.
Yeah.
You can send your crypto. You receive this cashback as a crypto. Any crypto you want. If you want Trump, if you want Shiba, if you want Dodge, it's fine. But I think that was something amazing because it was the first fintech in Central America doing these kind of things in the countries, right? Giving the opportunity for the users to send remittances in the app, in crypto remittance. In the field of marketing, for example, we give a lot of education because it was I think most of the people they don't have the knowledge about crypto. Maybe they hear something about Bitcoin or a news, but we give so many tools for educate the people in Central America. So now we have users in the corner outside from the city, super far, and they are investing in crypto right now. They are receiving remittances. They are using our crypto cards. And now we have other alliances with the banks. The banks want to provide services using inBestGo to the users. So now, even if you have any crypto, for example, in your portfolio, you can now you will be available to pay your bills, for example, your phone
Okay.
bills, energy bills, gas bills, for example. So we are giving more uses for crypto, right?
I love it. So again, more lessons here. There's loads of like pieces of gold being dropped here. So build great products. Don't build mediocre product. This gets back to my comment always about minimum viable products versus lovable product. They're building a lovable product. They're respecting not only their users but their partners. They knew that if they were going to have folks like Mastercard or Barclaycard or Visa or any of those folks there who are financial facilitators, or if they were going to have banks themselves, they would let those people down if they didn't have a product that worked really well. So they made sure their product works really well. Don't rush to the market with something mediocre. And that just also doesn't mean you should spend years waiting to build the perfect thing. You just need one or two features that work incredibly well, not one or two features that you're learning from other people on. Make sure your features are complete, that they are lovable, that they are transformative, and that they are something that's obviously needed in the market. So you nailed that so well. I already mentioned it, but you want to make sure your partners are the ones you're taking care of so well. You cannot let those people look bad under any circumstances. So you have to make sure before you bring them in, if you can't bring them in and make them feel really good, then don't bring them in and make them feel. Don't bring them in at all at the beginning. Make sure that you're bringing them up. And then the really beautiful thing is, then you went hard at the market. And so talk to us about the growth maybe over the last year or so, and then where you are now, and then some of the questions that some of the things that you actually did to get yourself there.
Yeah, well, we launched the app the last quarter of last year, so it was a difficult year because we were building and trying the future that we were mentioning. Uh, but it has been amazing. We achieved the goal for revenue the last year, and now the goal for this year is super high, right? But because the goals are higher, but the users I think at least in Guatemala, for example, they are very loyal to us. When we give the news that we launched the new app, they begin to download the app, to move the funds to the app. So it was amazing. January was incredible. We doubled the goal for January. We achieved 100K for
So
revenue.
hold on, so just to be
So it was
clear, just so
amazing.
everybody's listening here, you went from zero to $100,000 a month in net revenue, not transactional revenue, net revenue. That is revenue that
That's
they're making within 1 year. That is the goal, boys and girls. Like, if you want to build a unicorn, if you want to build a good company, do whatever you want. Make sure your customers love you, build out your products, sell a little bit, make a little bit of money, go on holidays to Cancun, enjoy life. But you want to build a venture backable startup, that's your line in the sand. You need to get to $100,000 a month within 2 years. Now, that doesn't mean that if you don't get to that level, you're not going to make it. But if you want to know what the path looks like without having to stray off that path, it's getting to that type of number. Because if you can go from zero to $100,000 a month within 2 years, it is highly probable that you're going to hit $200,000 to $300,000 a month within a following year. Now you're on 200% growth annually. When you're on 200% growth annually, well, wait for it, because you're $200,000 a month. Let's call it three, and we'll stay on 200% growth. That now turned to $900,000 a month growth. And the great thing is, you don't have to do that on your own, because once you're growing at that rate, what happens is the VCs see that you're growing at that rate. They want to invest in you. They are throwing money at you. This is why one of our companies in Africa just picked up a $22 million $22 million Series A last week, because everybody wants to give them money. And so your growth trajectory is perfect, because that $900,000 a month, well, even with 100% growth the following year, and by the way, you would probably have raised 30 to 50 million by this stage. Now you're at $1.8 million a month. And your $1.8 million a month, well, that is $100 million to a $500 million company already at that growth. You're there, right? And so this is incredible growth. So talk to us a little bit about what you did. First of all, let's start with your ideal customer profile. Who was the customers you went after, and why? And what were the specific things that you did to get from zero to $100,000 a month growth, which is, by the way, tens of millions in remittances to even get to that number?
Yeah, well, I don't know, for the people that are here listening, Guatemala is the second biggest country in remittances in Latin America. The first one is Mexico with 100 billion. Guatemala is going to be 20 to 25 billion. So it's amazing. Something I think that we did in the past was having an amazing customer service. Since all the product is in crypto, and probably the technology is difficult to understand, customer service was a key for successful, right? A lot of users, they came with a lot simple questions probably, but since I think we answered everything for them. It was like, hey, this company is like they're working for me and they're solving my issues, so I trust in them, right? So that, I think, was something very important that we did. The other is that we are, well, probably 75% of our users are men. They want to invest probably in crypto. They are open to try different technologies. So a lot of the users that we have is men, and we build this community with them, right? We have this. They are not simple users for us. They are part of the company. They give us a lot of feedback from the features that we are building. We have these amazing events with the users in Guatemala, part of the cities. And that's something that we are building that I think is very important for them, because they have I think they feel close to inBestGo. So everything that we launch, they want to try it. I think that's something amazing, and this is the first time that I see something like that, right? Because, for example, in other banks, you cannot talk with the CEO, you cannot talk with the team from the that they are building the company. If you're lucky, you're gonna receive a chatbot in the customer service, but that's
Yeah,
all,
I
right?
I, I want to hone in on
And
these two areas. So I want to hit on how you're engaging with these customers. But before we do that, because I really love this, for me, you only build a lovable product. Like it's like building a lovable relationship. You only build a lovable relationship by understanding what the other person loves. Like you don't have a choice. It can't just be from what you love because that's not a lovable relationship. That's a minimum viable relationship, right? And so I want to get to that in a minute. I want to get to like how you are asking for feedback, what feedback you are looking for, how you use that feedback to build. But before I do that, like all of these people that started using the platform, how did you find them in the first place? Like what did you go to, like a user or us, or did you go to digital marketing, or did you get partnerships? Like how, what was the things you did to get enough users to actually start to get you on trajectory for that $100,000 a month?
yeah, I think at the beginning we tried different channels, digital, for example. Then we realized that partnerships with someone that can refer you was very important. So we did a lot of interviews in radio. The most important programs in radio, for example, in Central America, that talk about economy, politics, entrepreneurship, and that kind of things. And we target a different audience in that part, right? Probably people that want to invest in different tools. So if someone is referring this amazing company like inBestGo, they trust in them and they begin in investing in us. We did a lot of conference in the universities, for example, but we realized that users, for example, they are beginners. They want to try the technology, but they don't have the sufficient investment, for example, to have a huge portfolio, right? And then it was I don't know how to say in English. It was like a mouth to mouth when everybody talks about
Yeah.
you. But that was something amazing here.
But how did
So
you get them?
when
How did you start getting, like, referrals are great, and and folks hearing about you from their neighbors and from other people is great, but you have to get them to love you first before they started doing that. Was it because you created some form of education around them, or you had those early users telling people, or you rewarded them? Like, how did you get them talking to other folks?
That's correct. We did a lot of education at the beginning. We did a lot of meetups in person, so they can know me. For example, they can know me in person. They can say, "Okay, this is David. He is the one that is in charge of the company." Uh, we give a lot of like these kind of video calls with everybody. So it was for beginners. So everybody that want to begin in this crypto world, they can have these Zoom calls with a lot of people that are asking the same question. So they can say, "Oh, so it is not only me with this question, right?" Uh, so I think these events, digital and in person, was something very important for us here. Um, and then when they receive, for example, digital marketing, it was very easy because they say, this is inBestGo. These are the guys that they did that event with the banks, or did that event with the FinTech Association in Guatemala, or that kind of thing. So, or this is David who was in the radio program. So it was very easy for then target the users in digital,
Yeah.
right? But I think the relationship with the users was the most important thing at the beginning.
Yeah, and then so that's perfect. And so I really like it. By the way, there's no shortcuts for anybody out there. If anybody thinks, oh, he did Reddit and like Reddit built up and they built a community. No, there's no easy ways. What happens is this is like, I'm Irish, so my mom makes delicious stew. It's kind of the only thing she does, but the stew is amazing, right? And so to do a great stew, you got to have all of the ingredients. You can't just throw the meat in there. You can't just throw the potatoes in there. You can't just do the carrots. You got to do the onions, the carrots, the seasoning. It has to be in the right pot. The pot has to be on the right heat. You got to keep it there for a period of time. It's hard. Like if you get a stew from the local supermarket, which is microwavable, it's going to taste different. The reason it tastes delicious the way it's done is because it's really, really, really hard. And so I'm really encouraging what you should be hearing in David's words are, this was a very difficult process and we threw everything at this. We threw like physical engagement with them. We had meetups, we had local events, like tiring things, layered in digital marketing on top of that. Then we brought in partners, we brought in the banks, we brought in the credit cards. We had all of these people raising awareness about us. And then you started getting feedback from the customers. So talk to us a little bit about how you continue to build that lovable product through the feedback that was coming through.
Well, I think that's a interesting story, right? Because at the beginning, my marketing team, they say, David, you should have social media accounts. And I say, dude, we don't live in Europe, right? We live in Latin America. So this is very dangerous to have, right? But it was amazing because in my Instagram, for example, I did a lot of tutorials of everything, how to open an account, how to download the app, how to deposit money, how to buy your first Bitcoin, how to send money to another wallet. And a lot of users, they begin they follow me, right? And they give me feedback by the chat because they know that I am answering all the questions all the time. So I receive now it's different because a lot of people know me. I go to a restaurant and somebody approached me, right? Hi, nice to meet you, David. I'm a user from your app. By the way, I have this feedback. And I say, oh, yeah, give me the feedback, right? Because I think the feedback from the users is the most important thing that we have. And also, if something is happening in the business now, most of the time I know that issue because someone wrote me in Instagram, in TikTok, or in my Telegram channel that I have, right? So we have a community, by the way, in Telegram, and all the users from Central America and Guatemala, they are teaching the new users, right? Because sometimes a new users comes to the inBestGo channel and they say, I have this question, and all user is answering that question. So that's very important because you as a new user, you can see that somebody else is using the platform and somebody is trusting the platform and somebody else is giving your answer for your question. So I think that's very important. So I receive that feedback from all my channels personally, and we have meetings internal here with the team, and we try to solve that issues, right? We use that feedback to solve and to make something better, to use the user experience in the app. So we constantly are working in that.
By the way, let me cut across here, and I want to really contrast this with my previous episode or the one before where I was talking about Apple. What I said was emotional resonance is great. It's very much needed, right? You've got user experience, you've got user interface, and then you've got user emotional resonance, right? And user emotional resonance is just really understanding what people are thinking, so you can make sure that they hear the messaging that will resonate most with them. And then I got all excited with the Apple situation because the whole user empathy became really important because I realized, wow, the biggest brands of the world, I'm always looking for a chink in the armor to go after. Like, how do we attack large brands to take their market share? That's what an early stage startup's job is to do. And I was like, great, user empathy. The fact that they don't care anymore is the most amazing thing to attack. And what's so beautiful is if I was going to do a masterclass on how do you attack and take market share from brands with no user empathy, you just gave the market class. This is the master class. This is how you do it. You make sure that if you're at restaurants, people know that you care so much that they will come up to you on the
Yeah, I think I lose Brian. Yeah, maybe if I can continue, if in the meantime that we are waiting for Brian, I think this part of
2026.
hearing. Ah, here, Brian, here.
Yeah,
We lose you. We lose you.
yeah.
We lose you like for 1 minute.
Okay, sure. So can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, good. And Kishley, maybe you can just let us know in chat if it's me or if it was David, and that way. Okay,
You
good.
should
Yeah.
say.
Okay, it's me. Okay, cool. Okay, good. So for everybody out there, what I was digging into was like, what inBestGo do next? Okay, so we've got to $100,000 a month in revenue. We're now going to jump into like where we go to after that. How do we get this up to $1 million a month in revenue over the next 2 years? Talk to us a little bit about that, about what that looks like. There's no doubt in my mind, by the way, you're going to hit $1 million a month in revenue. No doubt within 2 years by 2027. Talk to us about what that path looks like.
Yeah, I think we are now. Of course, we'll continue building new features in the app, right? And something that we are looking now is to onboard different ramps for the rest of Latin America, so we can go to another countries like Colombia, for example, like Mexico. So we have been building this part of the app so we can onboard other ramps for other
Yeah.
countries. As you know, Latin America is a like a different ocean, right? Because every country in regulations are so much different, and every year that laws change in that country. So since we have operations now in Guatemala, El Salvador, Dominican Republic, and Peru, we know that the regulations in each country are so hard. So I think one of the things that we are betting and want to bring is, okay, we know that are other inBestGos in other countries, so we are going to onboard that inBestGos to the app so they can receive the money from the users locally, and that's something that we are working now. And the other is building relationships with other fintechs in other countries, right? It was something that was key in Guatemala. For example, we never say that we are not going to work with the banks. We say we are going to work with the banks, and now the banks are working with us. And a lot of products that the banks are offering, we are going to offer in our app. For example, traditional remittance, right? It's $20 billion only in Guatemala. So we can share that market with them. And we have in our app the traditional remittance and the crypto remittance, because both words can work in the same place, right? So we are working that part, and I think that's something that we need to do this year. and now the target is 500. So we are working to do that.
So $100,000 a month to $500,000 a month. That's what we're talking about here. This is the line. And so I want to bring up, just before we're going to finish in 2 or 3 minutes, and I want to make sure, first of all, investors, look, if you've been doing this for a long time, you don't need me to tell you this. If you haven't been doing this for a long time, this is the game. Right? You need to find companies that are growing at 200% plus annual growth, and you need to try and get those people to take your money. Like, that's it. And you need to make sure, there's a market size big enough for it to grow up to $3 to $5 million a month in revenue. Once you're there, you're kind of at unicorn status anyway. The game is over. You've done very well, right? Bar bad luck. And so this company, for me, why do we invest in? Because it's a no-brainer. They're doing all of the things that they're supposed to do. And so if you're an investor, you want to reach out to David. David will give you his details at the end, but you can always reach out to me at Brian at Expert Dojo as well. And for everybody listening to it, what you're hearing him describing there is the future growth for startups. Is they're following the Uber model, right? Which is to break into, you don't need to design all of the new products at the beginning. The product is great. It takes passengers from A to B. It's just about getting more people to drive more cars. And so if you're going to do it in the US, well, why wouldn't you do it in Mexico? And if you're going to do it in Mexico, why wouldn't you do it in other places? They're following the same playbook. They are going to trailblaze all of the procedures and the regulations in each of these countries that nobody else is able to do. Do not be afraid as an early stage startup. This is how you build. Remember, there's a difference between an early stage startup that's afraid and the unicorn disguised as an early stage startup. These guys are unicorns disguised as early stage startups. That is why they're growing so fast. Okay, I want to just hit you with the 3 questions that are here, and I am going to finish with Kamushi at the end. But prior to that, let's jump in with, earlier on, we had one from Bargav, which was, there are different compliances and regulations for fintech geographically. What are the measures any fintech company can take to make it successful globally? David, I just want to like bring him back to the very beginning, where you just said you spent a ton of time with your biggest partner banks to make sure that all of their concerns were taken care of. This is very much Navy SEALs. To go fast, you have to go slow. And if you go slow, you go smooth. And if you go smooth, you're going fast anyway. But you have to be prepared to not just rush in and deal with this like some amateur lean startup type organization. First of all, you agree with that? And secondly, anything to layer on very quickly? And then we're going to go through 2 other very quick questions.
Yeah, I think Guatemala is a paradise in the world. For example, I think nobody knows, but in Guatemala, all capital gains outside from Guatemala is zero. So you don't pay taxes for that. I think it's a big opportunity for users that live in Europe, in the US, that they have to pay capital gains. For example, Guatemala, they never say that to the international people, but that's something amazing here. So yeah, of course, working with regulators is very important. Banks, I think, is the most important thing here. And yeah, and I agree with you. I think at the beginning we walk with them. We were like, okay, we need to build this faster, but I think this was the most important thing for us at the beginning. We didn't want to open an account in the bank with no saying to them. So we prefer to say to have these several meetings to explain our business model and to have the approval for them. Because if we grow, if we can open the bank account at the beginning, probably with not saying nothing. But if we are receiving $5 million every month, they're gonna say, who is inBestGo and why is receiving a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
So I think the first was doing that, walk at the beginning, so then we can run. And I agree with you in that part.
Yeah, and then I really like what you said, and I take back something I said earlier on, which is that you're following the playbook of Uber. No, the playbook of Uber was to lie to everybody, right? They did deal with new regulation, but they lied to everybody. They just went into places and asked for forgiveness afterwards, which was the same playbook for a lot of the scooter companies as well, who horribly failed. And even though Uber is a success, I don't know how much of a success something is if they had to raise $30 million to be worth like, sorry, a couple of $1 billion, maybe $5-10 billion to be worth tens of billions. Like, so no, I'm not sure. And I think so. What you're doing about honesty and transparency and taking care of your partners, I wish it was a lesson that every startup would learn everywhere. So really well done. I love that. Also, another question from Abash, which is, I was intrigued at how gaming and betting industry is using crypto. I mean, look, he's saying, what do you think about it? I think for me, crypto is like such a huge opportunity within betting and the betting and gaming industry. Quick thoughts, David?
Well, I think is everything about sending money, right? So a lot of people, they use crypto to send money, to have access to these gaming platforms or for betting platforms. I think it's fine if you want to go to try the casino. It's fine if you want to do that part. I think a lot of users, they use crypto because of that, because they want to have access to those platforms. And I think that's the most beautiful part of crypto, right? Because you're connected. You don't have to wait 3 days to receive the money, like banks, for example. If you want to try something like Trump or any meme coin, you can go with crypto, right? And you can do your own research and go to the casino if you want.
I love that. And it's totally true. Look, the opportunities are endless. So remember at the beginning when I said you need to find a product which is truly transformative, which is changing along with timing that the world really needs. But then I quickly added on at the end, oh, make sure that the market is big enough or you're not going to be able to do anything. Well, in this case, they just nailed that like 50 times over. So it's just a beautiful thing. I want to finish off. I'm going to finish with Kushi because I think she came up with a really nice question at the end, which is how much B2B partnerships are important as B2C growth. Look, again, I'm going to layer in everything for me is B2H, everything, business to human. That's it, right? And those humans can get approached. I actually had the same conversation with one of our portco companies this morning as well in the crypto space. I'm like, look, if I want to get to Elon Musk, let's say Elon Musk is my prototype, my perfect ideal customer profile. Well, I can do a post on X. I can also do a direct tweet to him. I can also, go to organizations like Tesla and other organizations he's a part of. I can also contact his mom, right, who's over in China and a very big influencer over in China. Like there's 50 different ways that I can approach Elon. Which one is the best? Well, kind of all of them are the best. And so you just want to find your best prototype user and make sure that those users are contacted in the way that they would most appreciate themselves. That gives you the best way that you can engage with them. Sometimes it's literally you standing on a stage, at the end of a stage, waiting for them to come off and saying, "You're my hero. Let me tell you about what I do." And so, David, maybe just specific to inBestGo, B2C, B2B, B2H.
I think something that I think in Latin America is different than other countries is that a lot of companies in Latin America, they don't like to make alliances. And I think that's something horrible, right? Because in the business world, you need to do alliances. You need to do partnerships with other companies. So B2B at the beginning probably is better for your platform. How many? I don't know. Maybe one, maybe two. I don't know if that is the recipe. But I think the most important thing is that you need to build the best product for the users. So if it is one or two, if that goes to the best product for the user, I think that's the formula.
I love it. Well done, my friend. That's exactly right. You take care of your people. You started off out of the beginning, which is saying, take care of your people. And you finished off at the end saying, take care of your people. How can people contact you, David?
You can follow me on Instagram if you want, or LinkedIn. My name is David Lee AW. I think it's over there writing. So you can follow me there if you have any questions. If you want to go to the Latin America channel, if you want to learn Spanish in Telegram, we have a inBestGo Insider over there. So you can come also.
And also David's email is on the bottom of the screen here, which is daw@inbestgo.com. inbestgo.com. Thank you, David. You're a legend, my friend. This is a unicorn speaking. Everybody watch it. Investors, get in like we did.